Just imagine if the ozone layer, which protects our Earth from dangerous and harmful rays coming from space, were to completely disappear. What impact would it have on us humans? This story begins by showing an entrepreneur who was handling the biggest deal of his life. However, as he was on his way to the meeting, he suddenly collapsed and fell to the ground. But this wasn't happening only to the entrepreneur. In the next moment, people inside the city started dying suddenly, as if an invisible force had killed them. So many people died at once that it led to riots and chaos. Now we are introduced to Dr. George, a geologist who was teaching his students about electromagnetic radiation in his class. Suddenly, two agents in suits arrived and took both Dr. George and his colleague, Serge, with them, without even asking for permission. Dr. George and Serge were then presented before a military colonel. The colonel showed George the dead bodies of the people who had died suddenly a few days ago. The colonel needed to find out what had happened to them, as there were no signs of an attack or virus spread on their bodies. When George examined some of the bodies, he immediately realized that these deaths were caused by dangerous radiation. The colonel speculated that it could be the work of their adversaries, but according to George, the power of these electromagnetic radiations should be extremely high to kill a person, and such a high radiation technique had never been generated by humans. Therefore, an attack by an opposing country was out of the question. The colonel seemed to understand the situation and asked George and Serge to leave since their task was complete. However, George wanted to get to the bottom of this problem, so he continued his investigation. Soon after, George discovered that birds in many countries had launched attacks. They had lost their way and were wreaking havoc in the city. After reviewing all the reports on the dead birds, George was convinced that a malfunction in Earth's electromagnetic radiation was causing the birds to end up in such a manner. Birds have a mechanism for finding their direction using Earth's electromagnetic radiation, and now, due to the fluctuation in Earth's radiation, they were unable to determine their destination. George combined all these events and then went to his laboratory to check Earth's current status. From space, George discovered something that could potentially end our entire planet. He urgently requested numerous government employees to be informed of this crucial information. Once the officers gathered, George led the meeting and explained that the ozone layer surrounding Earth, which protected us from cosmic rays coming from space, was gradually depleting. According to George's research, the cause of all this was internal to Earth. In fact, Earth has a core in its center that, due to its constant motion, creates a magnetic field around the planet. This magnetic field was responsible for the formation of the ozone layer. However, for some reason, Earth's core had suddenly stopped rotating, and now the ozone layer was slowly depleting. This clearly meant the destruction of Earth and humanity. Without the ozone layer, the cosmic rays from space, which are extremely dangerous, would completely burn human skin. All electronic devices would cease to function, and Earth's temperature would rise drastically, eventually turning the planet into a fireball. The only solution to address this problem was to somehow dig down to Earth's core, but this was entirely impossible. Humans have only been able to dig up to 11 to 20 kilometers into the ground, and we have no capacity to go any deeper, whereas Earth's core is 3,000 kilometers down. George had almost lost hope that anyone could save Earth, but one officer mentioned a friend named Brass. In fact, Brass had developed a technology that could penetrate any surface or rock using sonic radiation. If they used this technique to dig into the ground, they could reach their target much faster. Additionally, Brass had discovered a new element called monolith. This material could withstand any temperature and became even more solid under increased pressure and temperature. So, at George's suggestion, the government immediately contacted Brass and asked him to use his new element to build a large ship. This ship would use sonic radiation to drill into the ground and reach Earth's core. Due to the urgency of the situation, the government invested a tremendous amount of money into this project, and work on the ship began immediately. The plan was for the ship to reach Earth's core and drop a large bomb designed to give the core a shock, similar to how CPR is used to revive a person in a coma by giving a shock to the heart. This concept was applied to revitalize Earth's core. Soon, the most powerful and robust ship in the world was completed, designed to reach Earth's core. The ship was equipped with 6 different compartments. If any compartment malfunctioned, the team could abandon it and proceed. However, the next day, due to the depletion of the ozone layer, the atmosphere changed drastically. Lightning began striking from the sky at a rapid pace, causing significant damage to many people in the city. The government decided to skip the testing phase of the ship and start the main mission immediately, meaning they had to launch the mission without any testing. The best military officers were selected for this mission to operate the ship. They took the ship to the Mariana Trench, the deepest place on Earth. As they descended further into the trench, the pressure increased. When they reached the very end of the Mariana Trench, the team captain, Ben, immediately fired the sonic beam, which began to tear through the ground, allowing them to penetrate inward. In no time, they had covered several kilometers. However, after traveling 50 kilometers, their ship entered a different layer of Earth. On their sonar system, they detected strange spots, which led the scientists to discover that this layer of Earth was slightly hollow. Suddenly, Captain Ben's ship entered a bizarre layer that resembled a crystal formation, making it look like an entirely different world within Earth. The shocking part was that some crystals had gotten into their boosters, causing Captain Ben and his team to fall with the ship. Although the ship's structure was strong and not damaged, they were unable to proceed due to the crystals invading one of their compartments. When Ben and his team exited their suits and explored outside, they saw an entirely empty space inside Earth. However, they did not have time to explore it fully. Captain Ben decided to leave the damaged compartment behind and move forward. Suddenly, due to some reactions, many crystals began falling. A sharp crystal struck one of Captain Ben's teammates, killing him instantly and causing him to fall into an erupting lava pool. Captain Ben quickly gathered the remaining team members and they retreated back into the spaceship, taking off as soon as possible. They continued drilling with the sonic beam. A full day had passed since the mission began, and the ship had reached a layer of Earth where the temperature was increasing rapidly. A further complication arose when a large crystal collided with one of the ship's compartments, causing the control system to eject that compartment. As a result, everyone had to save themselves and move to another compartment. George and Serge, who were part of the team, also had to relocate to ensure their safety. George continues to contribute his efforts, but Serge notices that the nuclear bomb is in the compartment that is being ejected. If the bomb gets ejected, their mission would be pointless. Therefore, George goes to the ejected compartment, retrieves the nuclear bomb, and hands it over to Serge, telling him to leave. In no time, the compartment separates from the ship, and due to the immense pressure and temperature, it is crushed and destroyed. George is deeply saddened by the loss of his friend, but knows he must complete the mission with his team. The layer's temperature has now reached 6,000 degrees Celsius, which is enough to incinerate anything. However, the monolith metal manages to withstand this extreme pressure. Captain Ben discovers that the Earth's core is even thinner than they had estimated. If they were to throw the powerful nuclear bomb at the core, it might destroy the entire core, causing Earth to explode like a bomb. Given these developments, Captain Ben suggests that they must return, but they realize this is not an option. Captain Ben then reveals Plan B, which was developed collaboratively with the government. Years ago, opponent countries were generating earthquakes using radiation to attack continuously. In response, the US government had developed radiation capable of creating massive earthquakes on Earth. During testing, these radiation waves were accidentally released into Earth's core, causing a severe jolt that halted the core's rotation. George realizes that the root cause of the problem is the US government itself, as their secret experiments stopped the Earth's core from rotating. The government had been aware of the issue as it began and understood that it was their fault. And if this information became public, all the countries would turn against them. Therefore, their plan was to use the ship to carry the nuclear bomb and deliver a jolt to the core to reactivate it, or to generate another earthquake to revive the core, similar to the initial impact. However, the chances of survival were less than 1 in 100, as the jolt could potentially destroy the core completely. But they had no other options left. George firmly opposed this plan, but Captain Ben, unwilling to listen to someone he considered inferior, decided to proceed with the radiation attack on the core. Determined to prevent this, George enlisted the help of a hacker friend to hack the entire US government system, rendering it incapable of issuing commands temporarily. George then discussed with his remaining teammates how to activate the core and escape. Captain Ben also contributed by proposing an idea to use the nuclear bomb to activate the core. Although the nuclear bomb's power was immense, they could distribute it in separate parts to destroy each compartment gradually, creating a ripple effect. Everyone agreed to this plan. The ship soon reached near the Earth's core, and they began ejecting the compartments. However, ejecting a compartment manually was not feasible. It could only be done by the automatic system, which meant that someone had to stay inside to separate the compartment from the main ship. Many soldiers volunteered to sacrifice their lives for this purpose. As soon as one soldier ejected his compartment, his entire body was incinerated within seconds. However, the compartment was successfully ejected, and the ripple effect started to show from the nuclear bomb's blast. The core received a jolt, and Captain Ben's team started detonating the compartments. Captain Ben deliberately pushed George and a female teammate into another compartment, ensuring their own sacrifice to revive the core. With the second-to-last compartment blasting, the Earth's core began to spin again due to the radiation, effectively saving the planet. The impact was so intense that it rapidly propelled the last compartment upward. George and the woman inside that compartment were being lifted towards the surface due to the radiation explosion. The US government team tracked them and sent a rescue team. Soon, George's compartment surfaced back at the Mariana Trench, and the rescue team swiftly saved them and brought them back. The Earth had stabilized completely, with the ozone layers reforming around it. George's team was highly praised for the mission. A few months later, George's hacker friend discovered the secret mission details and uploaded all related files to the internet. Consequently, everyone learned about the US government's secret mission. Questions began to arise about the necessity of such a mission, and the US government appeared to become an enemy of the remaining countries. And thus, our story ends here.